Hey friends, welcome back to She's At It Again. My name's Tanya, and I'm going to share with you a recipe only because it's so weird, and I just made so many mistakes getting to this point. Okay, so the funny thing is, I went one day to make sour cream banana bars, and these are one of my favorite recipes. People ask for the recipe. I take them to showers, and it's like it looks like a sheet cake kind of, but it's thinner. It's made in a jelly roll pan. You cut it in little tiny squares. It has a glaze on the top, just loads of sugar in it, but it's so good. But I went to make it, and for some reason the batter just didn't look right when I poured it in the pan. I thought it was kind of weird, and lo and behold, I left the sugar out. Now, how can I do that? It's first ingredient in there. But I wasn't really that mad because when I tasted it, I thought these don't really taste that bad. They actually taste pretty good, because I have stopped eating so much sugar. I was actually making them for somebody else, but went ahead and kept that pan, made their pan for them again with all the sugar in it. But my husband and I both enjoyed that a lot because the overripe bananas had such a sweetness to them that was plenty of sugar for us, and we really enjoyed it. So all that being said, I kind of got used to making these sour cream banana bars without sugar in them, which is kind of weird, but we think it's really good. So fast forward to just a couple of weeks ago, I see a picture online. I'm watching a video of something, and I see this picture of a layered cake, and it had like a whipped cream frosting in between the layers. The sides were not coated, and then they took some macerated strawberries, which is just strawberries with some sugar on them to make them juicy. They put those on top, and I thought, oh, that is so pretty. You know what? And then the wheels got to turn in my head, and I thought, I bet I could make those sour cream banana bars, put them in round cake pans, layer them, just a couple of layers because it really doesn't make that much batter, and then make up some kind of frosting. I don't know, something with no sugar in it. So I made up my own frosting recipe, and then I took some strawberries and I added about a teaspoon of sugar, which is not a lot, but it makes them good and juicy. It doesn't affect necessarily the taste as much as it does just the texture and the juiciness of it. But I think in this recipe, I'm going to use honey. We're going to stay completely away from processed sugar. So this is kind of weird, but it's interesting if you know somebody who wants to stay away from processed sugar. We're replacing it with just a little bit of honey, but really not much at all in the entire recipe. There's just maybe a little over 1/4 of a cup. Seriously, the whole cake, 1/4 of a cup of sugar. That's almost unheard of, but it's so good. We invited our neighbor over last weekend, and he enjoyed it with us. Then okay, embarrassingly enough, we ate the cake in 3 days. Just, once upon a time, I ate the cake in 3 days. That's the end of the story. It was so good, but I didn't video it. So my husband said, did you make a video of this? No. So he insisted I make another one. How convenient. We're going to have another one to eat in 3 days. So I instructed him a while ago, we're not going to eat this cake in 3 days. We'll see. But I want to show you how to do it. So stick around. The first thing we want to do when we're getting ready for our cake is not preheat the oven, is not get anything ready except for our pans. So we're going to take 2 of these. I think these are 9-inch pans. Let me check. Make sure I wrote this down. Yeah, these are 9-inch round cake pans. These are just old cake pans. So here's what I do to get ready to make a cake. I pull out a length of wax paper. You can use parchment, but wax paper is just super inexpensive. Take it and pull it out about twice the length of your cake pan, so about 18 inches of it. Just roughly fold it in half. Set your cake pan down on it. And this is a mechanical pencil that does not have a lead in it, so we basically just kind of have an edge there. So we're going to just, it's not going to make a mark on the wax paper as much as it is just kind of a scratch line, like you can see where some of the wax is rubbed off. So make a line around your pan. And I think you can see where that circle is. I know I can see where it is. Get a pair of scissors. And the 2 pieces of wax paper are kind of stuck together where that line is now, or pushed together enough to where you don't need to cut 2 circles. You just cut it out once, and it's both layers. This is going to go on the bottom of our pan for easier cake removal. Now, if you want to, you can make little wings at the end of it to pull it up, but I find that it's not necessary if you'll coat the pan like I'm about to show you how to do. All right, we have our circles cut out now. Perfect circles. We'll set those aside. Take some coconut oil. You can use butter if you'd rather use butter. Just put a little bit in there. I'd say maybe 1/4 of a teaspoon or so. And you're going to cut the bottom, but really you're going to focus more on the sides because your wax paper is going to keep the cake from sticking to the bottom of the pan. So more concentrate on the edges of the pan and that little area right here at the bottom, the very corner. Stick your finger in there. If you have long nails, use the pad of your thumb to get in there. My nails aren't necessarily long, but I can just feel where it's getting down in that crease if I use my thumb. The nice thing about it is you don't have to wash your hands when you're finished doing this because that coconut oil on your hands is just going to keep them nice and soft. It's not like you're going to have a lotion that has gobs of chemicals and stuff in it you really shouldn't eat, much less put on your skin, on your hands. So this is something that's completely edible. So just rub it in. Give you a nice shiny coat. All right, next thing we're going to do is put just about a tablespoon of flour from our flour bucket over here, maybe not even a whole tablespoon, into the pan. And we're going to shake it around. Remember, you're not necessarily as worried about getting it on the bottom as you are getting it on the sides. So holding it over your secondary pan, just going to turn it around like this, tapping it as you go, and it's going to stick to the sides. Anything that doesn't stick to the sides is going to fall in the pan that you're about to put it in anyway. Okay, got that? We'll do the same to the next one. You can get it on the bottom. And spin your pan around. Anything that's not going to stick to the pan will go down in your other pan, and then we'll empty that back into the flour bucket. And of course, some falls on the counter, and that's okay. Now we're going to put our wax paper rounds in the bottom of the pan. So those are ready when we get all of our cake batter ready. Next step I want to show you is we're going to measure out 1.5 cups of very ripe bananas. When I say very ripe, that's some very ripe bananas right there. All the speckles in there, that just screams, I am so sweet, it's time to eat me. Now, I'm not necessarily a fan of the texture of bananas. I'll eat a banana just because I like the flavor, but just, I mean, the texture, it's like a lot of fruit. There's about a 5-minute time period there when it's just perfect. And any time before that, it's just not got enough flavor to it. And anything after that, it's like just eating, I don't know, some mashed potatoes that taste like bananas, I guess. I don't know. Just is not a great texture. So I'd rather just have my banana mashed up and in stuff, or I love banana baby food. That's no secret. Man, I could eat that stuff. And I do eat that stuff. I buy jars of organic banana baby food, and when I just need a little snack, that is my go-to snack. I love it. All right, we're going to take these bananas, and because we need 1.5 cups of them, we don't want a bunch of air pockets taking up space in there in the measurement. We actually want 1.5 cups of mashed bananas. So we're going to take and press them down in the cup as we go. Use a measuring cup to make sure you're getting the right amount. And if you get a little bit over, that's probably okay. This cake also calls for pecans. It's kind of a banana nut cake with macerated strawberries and a whipped cream cheese. You knew I was going to say that. Frosting that goes in between the 2 layers. But if you have someone with a nut allergy, or you just don't like the texture of nuts or don't like the flavor of them, then just by all means leave them out. It's not going to affect or adversely affect the cake at all. Okay, that's getting close. I'm going to pick a small banana. If you have a garden, save those banana peels for your compost. But what I've been doing, my tomato plants are real young right now. They're not all viney and going nuts. But what I've been doing is going out and taking the banana peels and taking about 1/4 of one and just poking it down in the soil, because anytime I find earthworms, I put in the, my tomato plants are raised in buckets. I think I've said this before on several videos. I don't have a huge yard, and what yard we do have, we have treated by a landscape company. So I don't want my plants growing in that soil. Obviously, it's got poisons in it. So I grow them in 5-gallon buckets and big cow feed tubs. And anytime I find an earthworm somewhere in some really good soil, I save that little joker and I put him in my buckets for my tomatoes. And I found one the other day. I'm not even kidding when I say that thing was this long, and it was as big around as my index finger. And I called him Mr. Big, and I put him in one of my tomato buckets, and he's living in there. So I keep taking my banana peels and watermelon rinds out and sticking it in the soil to feed those worms. So they probably think they've died and gone to the Hampton Inn or something. I don't know. Just all the breakfast buffet that keeps coming to them. Okay, this is right at 1.5 cups of mashed bananas. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna turn the cameras off, and then I'll come right back and I'll have my mixer and stuff set up. I'll get rid of all this stuff here. So we'll be right back. We're back, and I have my mixer out, and I have my 1/2 cup of softened butter in the bowl. So we're good to go on that. We're gonna set our oven for 375. And I'll turn the light on. And just so you know, you're not imagining things when you see a pan of something else in the oven, because I remembered I have 3 slices of bacon left from where I made soup the other day, my bacon cheeseburger soup, which was a previous video, I think. Well, that may be out in a few weeks because we're having to slide this video in since it's strawberry season. But there's bacon in there because I remembered I had 3 slices left in the package, and I need to cook that off so I can use it. So anyway, we've got that going. May as well use the heat while we have the oven on. So we have 1/2 cup of softened butter in our mixer. And to that, we're going to add about 1/8 cup of honey. If your bananas are sweet enough, and mine probably are, you don't really need the honey, but I'm just throwing it in there just because it's a cake, you know? Okay, that is close to 1/8 cup right there. I'm just saying a blob. just a blob of honey. Now this is not raw honey because I'm going to cook it and it's going to destroy all those great properties that raw honey have in them, but I'm a big fan of honey. So this is just my cheap honey that I buy, not raw. You can use your raw honey. It's not going to adversely affect the taste of it by any means, but I kind of save my raw honey for when I can eat something that's it's not baked in, so it doesn't kill off those properties. So to that, we are going to add our 1.5 cups of very ripe bananas, but I think I want to beat this butter first just to get it fluffy. That butter was nice and soft. And I use unsalted butter just in case you're wondering. And of course the recipe will be in the description box along with this video if you decide you want to print it out. All right, I'm going to add my 2 eggs to this as well. So I'm going to whip it up. Kind of keep having to push it back down in there because the butter wants to kind of stay in its own little village. Since it has all the fat in it, it doesn't want to get friendly and get along with the other ingredients in there a lot of times. And it has something to do with the fact that the eggs are cold and the butter is not right now. All right, I'm also going to, before I add my bananas, I'm going to put in my 1 cup of sour cream. Now don't use the low fat kind if you can keep from it. There's really not a good reason to use the low fat. So this, you're probably wondering why I have a dash or a scoop with a dasher in it, because this is actually a 1/4 cup measure and it just comes out pretty clean. So I'm going to measure it with that. So I'll do 4 of these. If you have a good idea of what your scoops with a dasher in them measure out to, they're kind of handy to use because you don't have to scrape it out of the container. It just comes out when you activate the dasher. So that's pretty clean. All right, so we have our 1 cup of sour cream. Let's give that a stir. And now our 1.5 cups of very ripe bananas. Good thing I keep my counters clean because I'm forever slopping stuff over on the counter and have to pick it up and add it back to the container. All right, let me get the rest of this off the edge of that dasher. Give this a stir. Okay, let me tip this over so you can see it in the bowl. I'm hoping that camera picks it up. Okay. Just wanted a smooth consistency. All right, I've measured out 2 teaspoons of vanilla. This is homemade vanilla extract I make with, I think it's vodka. Yeah, vodka made with sugar cane. It's organic vodka made with sugar cane from Hawaii. And then you get your vanilla beans and add to it, and you have to let it sit for several months. And this has probably been aging for over 2 years. So I just keep using that of it. And I have more bottles stashed away. They're ready to go when I run out of that. We never run out of vanilla. All right, let's give that a stir. To that, we are going to add 2 cups of flour. This is just plain organic flour. We have a teaspoon of salt. And a teaspoon of baking soda, not baking powder, but baking soda. Mix it up a little bit. I don't like the lumps in my baking soda, and usually I have to stir it just to get those little lumps out. All right, put that in there. And we're not going to mix it real vigorously. We're just going to mix it until it's all moistened. We don't want to get the gluten built up to where it's not a good texture product. And if you just keep beating it after you put the flour in there, then it just makes it less desirable. We'll just say that. Because this is a pretty dense, substantial cake anyway, and you're going to keep it in the refrigerator because of the frosting being made with whipping cream. So you want it to be light and airy as possible. It's not super light and airy, but you're going to keep it less less adversely affected by the stirring up the gluten. So just moisten, just until it's moistened, that's all we're going to mix it. All right, now we're going to take our half cup of chopped pecans. If you do not want nuts in this, do not add the pecans. Don't die just because you're trying my recipe. I'm kidding, I know you're not going to do that. All right, I think that's mixed up pretty well. If it's not, I can always mix it up more with my spatula. Now we're going to take and put this in our 2 pans that we just prepared earlier. And hopefully the oven will preheat pretty soon, and we'll pop it right in the oven. We're going to bake these off for 25 to 30 minutes. We have to let these cool completely before, obviously, before we put our frosting on there, because it is made with whipping cream and cream cheese. So you do not want that on a hot cake because you'll end up with some kind of funky, good tasting liquid on there, but it's not going to be a fluffy frosting like we want it to be. So once we pop these in the oven, we're going to chill our bowl and our beater that we're going to whip the heavy cream in and the cream cheese. So you always want to start out with a cold beater and a cold bowl when you're doing that, or else if you start out with room temperature or warm ingredients, sometimes you end up with butter, and you don't necessarily want butter in this, you want frosting. And we want it to be whipped up. So start out with a very cold bowl. You can put it in the freezer if you want to, but I just put mine in the refrigerator for several hours, so that'll give us enough time to bake off the cake and let it cool off while that's chilling. Also, while we're baking the cake, that's a good time to wash and cap and slice your strawberries. Now, I probably used about a half a pound or a half a quart of strawberries the last time, but it really just depends on what you want. If you want to do the whole quart, that's totally fine. It's just going to have more strawberries. But it's not a, there's not a science to it. Like I said, I just made this cake up, so it's not like you're going to do it wrong. All right, I'm hoping that camera's picking up these pans, and we'll see if we can get an even amount in each one, or an equal amount in each one, I should say. We're going to pour it right on top of that wax paper. Now, the wax paper does not have spray on it or coconut oil or anything. That wax paper is going to peel off that cake, I promise you. Hey, that's good timing. Our oven's ready now. Okay, it looks like we have about an even amount, or an equal amount in each one. So spread this around. I see some little blobs of banana in there, so that's not going to hurt anything, I don't think. It's not going to hurt it for me anyway. All right, set that aside, and we'll pop these in the oven. There's my bacon in there smelling so good. Oh my goodness. If anything's gonna smell better than that cake, it's gonna be that bacon. Okay, so I'm gonna set it for 25 minutes. We can always add more time to it, but we can't take it away. And we'll be back in just a bit and we'll get these out of the oven. Timer just went off and our cakes are done, I think. Yeah, they feel done. Okay, a little bit of cracking on the top, but I'm pretty sure that's okay. Let me make sure this camera's picking these up. There we go. Okay, cakes are done. A little bit of cracking in the top, but that's not gonna matter because we're gonna put some really good frosting on it. So stay tuned. We're gonna let these cool off. We're going to come back and make our frosting, put that on there, and the strawberries, and we'll see you then. We're gonna slice our strawberries. I have them washed and they're not really dry, so that really doesn't matter a whole lot. We just wanna take the tops or the caps off of them. And they're pretty if you just slice them like this. But if you wanna chop them up, you can puree them if you want. You could put them in their whole if you wanted to, but they're not going to get nice and juicy from the sweetness being added to them. I'm using honey. I added sugar the other day, but like I said, it was only maybe a teaspoon of sugar in the whole batch of strawberries, so it's not a lot. But the strawberries this time of year are so sweet anyway. It doesn't matter, and I wish I could report, oh, I've got so many strawberries in my yard. I'm just growing such beautiful big strawberries, but I'm telling you, my strawberries are a bit disappointing. I don't know if they're just waiting to put on all of a sudden or what, but I'm kind of a loser when it comes to growing strawberries apparently. Even though I can grow them from seed, they're not producing diddly squat. So, okay, that's how pretty these strawberries are. And I probably used just a little over half of that quart of strawberries. So. Okay, now for the big treat. I'm gonna turn this camera around. I gotta show y'all this, guys. Forget the strawberries for a minute. My doggies had a haircut yesterday. Come here, Lacey. Come here. Here, wait right there. Can you sit? Good job. Good job. Is that not the cutest thing? You just gotta see this. This one is Zoe. And this one is Lacey, and they went to the groomer yesterday while I had to run errands in Little Rock. And I came back and I had to tell them, y'all are naked. You're naked, but they look so good. Our groomer just does an impeccable job. Look at those feet. Their feet look like they had on little fluffy house slippers. They were so shaggy after not having a haircut in 3 months. But man, when I go and pick them up, I'm telling you, they are such fabulous groomers there. It's unbelievable. And they love our doggies so much. They're just so sweet to them. But that's our local groomer called Serendipity. And the owner's name is Sam. And she's just so sweet. But the groomer is Nellie. And she's a stinking magician. So I think Zoe's pretty excited. Even though she doesn't look like she's excited. She's excited. Okay, we're going to come back in just a bit. We're going to whip up some heavy cream and some cream cheese and make some frosting. So stay tuned. I'm so sorry, guys. I got so anxious or so excited telling you about my doggie's haircut that I forgot to show you putting the honey on there. So this is some raw honey. Now we can use raw honey now because the strawberries aren't going to be cooked. It's not going to cook out anything. So you're still going to get the benefits from some raw honey. And if it's local raw honey, that makes it even better. But this is not. This is from the local Kroger, which is not local honey. All right, we're just going to squeeze out maybe 1.5 teaspoons of honey over that. We're going to pop the lid on it and put this in the fridge. And that'll draw out some of the natural juices in that. It'll just make it a little bit sweeter, even though they're perfectly pleasant the way they are. So, okay, we'll be back in a bit. We are ready to finish up our banana nut strawberry layer cake with cream cheese, whipped cream frosting. That's too long of a name for a cake, but it really is good. I know I keep telling you that, but we ate it in 3 days. Come on, 2 people in 3 days. Well, we had help from a neighbor the first night, but he didn't eat that much. All right, the first thing we want to do, I just now took this beater from my mixer. I have a whisk beater for the mixer and the bowl out of the refrigerator. I try not to touch it any more than I absolutely have to, just because I don't want the warmth from my hands to warm up the container. And I know it doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but actually it is when it's humid and it's warm outside. Any kind of heat like that just is too much, and it doesn't whip up enough. So do you see how I barely touched it? All right, I'm gonna plug the mixer in. Again, that's my whisk attachment. And I'm gonna put this cream cheese in. I have about 2 ounces left from making actually the cake the other day. And then I made that bacon cheeseburger soup. So that was 6 ounces right there, and what I have left is 2 ounces. So I'm a believer in cream cheese, but I'm certainly not going to waste it, that's for sure. All right. I'm going to whip this just a tiny bit. Because my cream cheese was not softened, it's just a little hard to get mixed in there, but you don't want to put your heavy cream in first, because then when you put your cream cheese in, it's going to be that blob and it's just going to start slinging around, and it's bad enough that a lot of times when I use the whipped cream in here, it'll probably do it in a minute, it starts kind of getting little flicks flying all through the air, and it winds up on the countertop and the floor, which the doggies love. But I'd rather get all this creamed in, all the ingredients, and then add the whipped cream or the heavy cream last and whip it up. All right, to that 2 ounces of cream cheese, I'm going to add about, let's see, I said about 1/8 cup of honey, so that's about 2 tablespoons, and really and truly it doesn't need a lot. I'm also going to add just a dash of almond extract. Now, no measurement. This is what a dash is. Like that. That's plenty. And then to that, we're going to add about just a little more than 1/8 teaspoon of salt. Not quite 1/4 teaspoon, but you do need that sweetness in there to balance out, or you do need that salt in there to balance out the sweetness. All right, let's get that mixed in. That looks really smooth now. Let's see if I can give you a better look at that. I'm hoping that's in camera shot. I just never know. I can't see what you're seeing in the camera, so I'm hoping that looks clear. All right, we're going to put about 2 cups of heavy cream in there, and I'm just kind of guessing at it. That's how we roll. You can measure it out if you want to. I just hesitate to even transfer it to another container to measure it and then put it back in here because I don't want it to warm up. All right, let's whip this. And this smells so good. It smells like almond extract, which a lot of people think smells like cherries. I get where it smells like a fake cherry, but this reminds me of when I was younger and my paternal grandmother, when we'd walk in her house, the first thing we'd want to know is, do you have any of those little cakes? Now, we lived very, very simply, and when I say simply, I mean like we were really poor, but she would bake for people in her town. Big surprise. She was a fabulous, fabulous baker. And she would make what's called pétafours, which are tiny little cakes, and you pour over this glaze, and I've never been able to master those. Mine just look like somebody made a mistake, and we move on and we go, oh, those were good, but we don't look at them very closely. But she'd have little rosettes piped on each one, but she would keep the extras in the freezer for us when we came to her house, and they were so good. But they had almond extract in the frosting, apparently, maybe in the cake too, because it was a really, really soft, beautiful white cake. But this smell just reminds me of eating those little pétafours, and we'd only ask for one, but we'd get one like each day, and oh, they were so good. Oh my goodness, just the memories that flood back when you get that fragrance of something that reminds you of your childhood. So anyway, okay, let's get this whipped up. This is going to take just a few minutes, but I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. So I'll show you how to tell if it's stiff peaks or not quite beaten well enough yet. And don't turn it on full speed immediately or it will jump out of the bowl. All right, some people would think that this is enough, and it probably is enough, but I like to give mine just a little more air in there, a little bit of loft. That way it doesn't collapse once we put the strawberries on. So we're going to beat it just a little bit more. Okay, that, my friends, is some pretty whipped cream right there. Cream cheese whipped cream, which is the best. All right, I'm going to put the milk or the heavy cream back in the fridge. Now what we're going to do is put our cakes onto our plate. I'm hoping that this is in view. I think I'm putting this in the right spot. So remember, we have the wax paper underneath it, and this is how I get my cakes out. This may not be how anybody else does it, but this is how I do it. You just start flipping them up and down, and there's your cake. We're going to peel the wax paper off. Sometimes it comes off in one big piece. Super easy, just like that. So we're going to center it on our plate, which isn't hard because the bottom of this plate's about the diameter. The center part's about the diameter of the cake. So we are going to put a layer of cream cheese on. Cream cheese, whipped cream. We'll have a center layer and then some for the top. So use about half of it for the center, maybe not quite half if you want the top to look extra fluffy. Bring it almost all the way to the edge. Now when we put the other one on, it's going to press it down a little bit and it will push it out, so you don't want to have it too far out. So put it almost all the way to the edge. Get it about as flat as you can. We're going to get our strawberries. And if you'll remember, these have honey on them and not sugar, so they're not, there's not a possibility of there being too much graininess to them at all because there's not a grain in there. I'm going to get a spoon to put those on there with. That did bring out a lot of the juices though. Those are really pretty. You know, you could always use fresh mango with this, and if you use fresh mango, I would say you don't need any honey or sugar at all. Just pieces of fresh mango, that would be fabulous. You could put pineapple and coconut on this. I mean, you could do just all kinds of things for the fruit layer on this. I just happened to do strawberries because I had strawberries in the refrigerator, and I just had my husband pick up some at Natural Grocers. that day before, and so I thought, you know what, strawberries would be good. And they are. Okay, just part of those on there. Then we're going to put our next layer on there. Let's flip our cake so you can start feeling it move out of the pan. You can hear it jumping up. Peel our wax paper off. And just lay that on there. Press it down enough to where it'll stay in place. Make sure you have it centered. And let's load that next layer of cream on there. You could replace the almond extract with vanilla super easily if you don't have almond extract. That's not a problem. Again, bring this almost to the edge. You could actually frost the sides of it, but why would you want to? It's not ugly. You're not trying to cover it up. And the more you have on top, the more room you have to keep the strawberries on top, keep them from sliding off the edge. And I like having my frosting kind of lumpy, but if you want to smooth it out, you just go right ahead. And for those of you who are allergic to dairy, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. But an alternative to this would be, for this frosting, that you could, there is an alternative cream cheese that's made with cashews. And then you could use coconut, is it coconut cream? Coconut cream or coconut milk, the heavier stuff with the big blob of coconut fat in it. You could use that as your cream in this, your heavy cream. Okay, put the strawberries on there. Now the juice from these, it'll drip down the side. It'll soak into that bottom cake. I'm not even mad about that at all. It's going to be so good. So this cake may not be gluten-free, but I'm here to tell you, this has no processed sugar in it. For somebody to make a cake with no sugar in it, that's a big deal, especially for somebody who has issues with their blood sugar levels. Even though honey still is going to raise your blood sugar, the glycemic index is so much lower for honey, and there's really not that much in here. Really, the most sugar you have is coming from those overripe bananas, but who doesn't need a banana in their life? I mean, seriously, it's the goods. Okay, let me get my camera so I can get you a close-up of this. Come around here. You can see Zoe's down here by my feet because it thundered a while ago and she's really nervous about it. Okay, this is our cake. How about that? Pretty cool, huh? Okay, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you give this a try. This is such a weird cake. The fact that I invented it, that's pretty cool because I don't invent a lot of stuff. I'm really not that smart, but just to see a picture and go, you know what I could use for that? So I'm pretty proud of this one. So even though the name is ridiculously long, we'll just give it another name. I don't know what we'll call it, but we'll call it something. But share this with your friends. Hope you liked it, and we look forward to sharing something else with you in our next video. Thank you.